right.
caramel in this one.
Yes. Is that okay?
No, it's good.
Okay. Sorry.
I bit in
Did you have an orange one?
and there
Or
was
yellow or
inside
whatever?
it, but I
Oh.
don't know what.
Oh, you like eat a foil?
What?
It says
I don't
on the
know.
little
No, there's some inside of
It said
it.
caramel.
Okay, we're gonna talk about evidence for evolution. So this is the last section of chapter 6. We started with fossils, the geologic record, fossil record. We know that organisms change over time through fossils. Yes, London.
Can I do my phone back?
That's fine.
Speaking of,
And then we went on to Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution through natural selection and the evidence behind that. And now we're talking about even more evidence for evolution, because evolution is not just, a theory in everyday terms. It's based on fact. Okay. So evolution does not occur in a straight line. It's not linear, where one species just replaces another species in a nice little orderly step. That's not evolution at all. It's kind of messy. Really, when we talk about evolution and how related they are to other species, we're looking at a common ancestor, whether or not they shared a common ancestor. And so how closely related two species are depends on when they had split apart from that common ancestor. So people are like, oh, humans came from apes and chimps. No. We shared at one point, a really, really long time ago, a common ancestor. We didn't come from chimps or apes. We shared a common ancestor, but we did not come from them. Okay? So this is, so we talk about pedigrees and family trees. You don't go from great-grandfather to grandfather, father, and then you. This is your family tree, right? Where you have you, and then you and your siblings share parents, and messing up my flow. Just kidding.
Yeah. Wow.
You ask all the time.
Wow. I used to like to do that.
I thought you said, can I go to the bathroom? And then she turned the page. I was like, okay.
That's what I thought.
And then your parents, your siblings, and yourself, you share grandparents, but other family members that can stem from your grandparents would be your cousins. So like this is what evolution's more like. So up here, this is not evolution. I'm sure you've seen that famous picture of like some chimp, and then it's like a hybrid chimp human, and then it finally, that's incorrect. Whoever made that, no, that's incorrect. And it's out there, and you can't get rid of it. You just can't get rid of it. So this is not evolution where you go from fish to salamander to cat to you, or if I threw in a monkey. This is evolution. Mammals, okay? Cats and humans at one point shared a common ancestor of all mammals. So everything above it is mammals, and everything below it is not mammals. Or if I looked at this dot right here, it says a common ancestor of all vertebrates. So vertebrates means backbone. So everything above this circle has a backbone. Everything below it does not, because there are some animals that don't have backbones. Can anyone give me an example? Ellie.
Snake?
Snakes have a backbone, actually.
What do you?
Yes, they do. Take
Oh, what?
squid.
a squid. Yes. Okay.
Does a ferret have a backbone?
A ferret.
With those bendy things?
Ferrets have backbones.
No, like I saw like people with bendy in there.
Oh, I don't know. Edwin?
Octopus.
An octopus. So any cephalopod, insects, worms, right? So they would be underneath that. So then you can, simplify or get a little bit more specific. Everything above this is anything with 4 limbs, okay? Fishes, they don't have 4 limbs, but they do have a backbone. Everything above here, they have a backbone and they have 4 limbs. And then mammals, and they get rid of the amphibians. So that's evolution. Each little branching point is a common ancestor that those organisms shared at one point. So some evidence that supports evolution is anatomy, comparative anatomy, comparing anatomy from one species to another. So we look at similarities, we also look at differences among living species. So the first type of structure I want to talk about is homologous structures. This is where body parts that are similar in structure as well as position but they carry out a different job or they have a different function. So in this diagram here, I have the flipper of a seal, the wing of a bird, I guess a wing of a bat, forelimb of a horse, and the human arm. And you'll notice that there's bones, all four of them have bones, and that they are color-coded, right? So the yellow is the phalanges. We all have, or share, we all have phalanges in our limbs. We got metacarpals. We got carpals, the bones in your wrist. We all have a radius and an ulna, this orange and purple. They all have a humerus bone. So all of these animals, seals, birds, bat, horse, humans, they have the same types of bones. But do they carry out the same job? No. Okay? The flipper's for swimming. The bird and the bat, flight. The horse to run. Human arms, grasping objects. Okay? So, we all share the same structures, but we carry out different jobs. So species with homologous structures suggest that they are related. At one point, all five of these animals probably shared a common ancestor that they branched off from. The more similar two structures are, the more likely they came from that common ancestor. So that's homologous structures. Okay, the next slide is going to talk about analogous structures, which is like the opposite. Okay, so don't get these two mixed up.
I'm getting them mixed up.
You are? No. Here's another slide showing, like, they put in the monkey limb, they talk about pig limbs and moles, they all have the same anatomy as well. Okay. So analogous structures, body parts that carry out the same job but differ in structure. So insect wings, bat wings. They are both used for flight. So they have the same job or similar function, but they differ in that structure. Insect wings, they're transparent. Okay? They don't have bones, no muscle, no blood. Bat wings, they are not transparent. They have bones, they have blood, flesh. So different structure. So just to recap, homologous is similar structure, similar origin, different job or function. Analogous, different origin, different structure, similar function. So you can see that they're opposites of each other, right?
See now.
You see now? I hope so.
I know.
So one more diagram, maybe this will help. The top is showing homologous structures, how they have similar bones, but they have different jobs. The bottom panel is showing analogous structures. They are all used for what job? Flying, right? But the makeup of each limb here is completely different. And here we have feathers. Bats don't have feathers. Okay. One more type of structure I want to talk about is called vestigial structure. This can be very interesting. Humans actually have a lot of vestigial structures. So body parts that have lost their original function through evolution. Basically, it's useless in the organism, but they haven't gotten rid of it for whatever reason. So humans, we have a lot of vestigial structures. First up, the human appendix. So just off the large intestine, we have this structure called the appendix. And inside the appendix is a culture of bacteria that break down cellulose. Okay? But we don't use it anymore, but it's still there. So when people have their appendix removed, what happened was that their appendix ruptured and the bacteria leaked out and it caused an infection. And that's why people that, rupture their appendix, they get the chills, they feel like they're getting sick, they get cramps. And it's because of that infection that's being spread, so they have to go in, get it removed, make sure it gets cleaned out, and then they stitch them up and send them on their way. So, we have the appendix, but we don't use it anymore, right? So that means that our early ancestors, okay, like thousands and thousands of years ago, maybe they did eat grass or some type of vegetative matter that needed the bacteria to break down plants. Because like cows, they have bacteria like this in their stomach to help break down the cellulose. You know, but today, if we eat corn, you're gonna poop out corn. We don't break it down. We can't. Does that make sense? Okay, here's another human vestigial structure. Hair. Does it keep us warm? Our body hair? No, that's why we gotta wear clothes. Why do we have body hair? I don't know. Why do men have nipples? Okay,
Why do girls have hair?
some humans still have a muscle behind their ear that they can control their ears. They can wiggle their ears like this. My grandpa could.
Dad can.
My grandpa could. He'd go swimming with us, and he would like go under the water, and he'd come up and he'd wiggle his ears, kind of like from Alfalfa and the Little Rascals, right? So why would humans in the past have that feature? Why could they be able to move their ears like this? And who was the predator in that story? The wolf. So humans at one point, they were not the top dogs. They were preyed on by predators. So you know, like rabbits and deer, you know, they get spooked, they move their ears trying to figure out the sound, and they're like, oh, danger, danger, I'm getting out of here. Maybe humans had the same function. I don't know. Is that all I want to say about humans? There's so many more. Okay, I'll mention one more.
When someone says your name, what?
When you get ice cream.
Teachers, all of a sudden the ears just go whoosh.
They're just like, what are you talking?
The eustachian tube. So you have a tiny little passage behind your eardrum that goes from your ear to your throat. Why?
Because it wants you to be sick and be what?
Well, that's what happens when you do get sick. Okay, but like frogs have eustachian tubes, and it helps them like equalize pressure when they swim and whatnot. Yeah. So.
My ears pop when I go at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, some other vestigial structures. Enough about humans. Ostriches. Why do they have wings if they don't fly? Maybe they could fly at one point, and they adapted to their environments where they didn't need to fly anymore. Yes.
What about the babies to keep them warm?
Oh, maybe.
What? Imagine.
What about the windows? Can
So they just use their wings instead of for flight for something else.
If ostriches could fly, imagine just looking up and you see a flock of ostriches just flying over your
That'd be
house.
terrifying.
And then their legs are just like dangling.
These
in the
things
air
are like-
because they have nothing else to do.
All right, pelvic bones in whales. Why do whales have pelvic bones? So pelvic bones are your hip bones. What attaches to your hip?
Your legs.
Your legs.
Oh,
Whales have pelvic bones. What?
for their tail.
Some
Yeah.
early fossil records show that whales did have early whales had limbs.
That is so scary. Imagine a whale just getting out of the water and start walking towards you.
They did. Okay. Snakes. Snakes have pelvic bones / hind remnants of hind limbs. So snakes probably have limbs.
Can they walk?
They sliver.
But they walk.
Did they walk? Yeah, they probably have legs, and they probably could.
Like a pound like a frog.
Just like snake.
Just like the snake gets on his legs. Bonjour.
Is she really a snake?
Rebecca Horman, please come down to the office. Rebecca Horman, please come
Okay.
down to the office. Thank you.
Developmental biology. Switch gears. So that was all about structures. All right, developmental biology. One study called embryology studies embryos and how they develop after fertilization to birth. So an embryo is like an unborn organism, usually in the womb of the mother or an egg of some sort. So one thing they've noticed in vertebrates, animals that have backbones, all vertebrates have something called a pharyngeal pouch at some stage in their development. For some species, it kind of turns into gills, it turns into lungs, turns into eustachian tube. I mean, just at one point, then it kind of splits and goes into different directions. But similarities in location as well as function of the pouches means that, hey, vertebrates shared a common ancestor at one point.
Are we gonna keep going?
Yeah. So I'm going to show you a picture of 4 different embryos.
Wait.
That's Christ today.
I'm waiting for Jordan to just like stand up and do mom thing.
You keep calling me a mom. I don't know.
Have
why.
you seen her, like, she always wears cardigans, and then, like, she'll unironically do this, and, like, stand there.
Okay, maybe it's a little chilly in here then. God. Are you done yet?
I'm sensing some chilliness between you two. Guess you guys aren't BFFs today.
No, we've just been insulting each other all day. She looks like
And then she wanted to sit by me. Gosh, what is she thinking? She's thinking what she
All right.
did like you.
Here's a picture of 4 different embryos. Okay? They look pretty similar. They got some differences.
It kind of looks like a seahorse.
Kinda
It
like a
looks from
seahorse.
going.
Yep. Here are the pharyngeal pouches. There's one right here, there's one right here, one right here, one right here. Now, take a look at the end result. Okay, now we start to see some differences. So this first line right here, that's a lizard. This is a tortoise. This is pig. This is human.
I can't get over the fact that the lizard looks like that one show, which like
Ringo?
yeah,
Ringo.
the
Rango!
lizard with the big eyes.
He's like, hi.
All right, another piece of evidence for evolution is called molecular biology. This is where you study gene structure and function. So we kind of analyze genomes or DNA sequences of organisms, and then we compare them to each other. So when we compare chimp, mouse, chicken, and fruit fly to humans, you can see that we are very closely identical to the genome sequence of chimps. That just means that we shared a common ancestor at one point, where one split off and became the chimp, and one split off and became Homo sapiens or humans. Mice, 88%. In fact, that number has now been higher. I just taught this in my college biology class a few weeks ago, so that number is actually a lot higher than 88. Chicken is still around 75%, and fruit fly is around 60. So we use mice a lot in research because we share a lot of the same genes. Okay, so yeah, kind of cool.
So now we're not.
So the more closely related species are, the more similar their genes or proteins are. So this is actually kind of a cool scenario with vitamin C. So other non-human mammals can produce their own vitamin C. We cannot. So you have to, you should probably eat fruits and veggies in your diet so you can get vitamin C. So humans, on the other hand, have had ancestors that have been eating fruit for so long, which is high in vitamin C, that our vitamin C genes long ago mutated and no longer make vitamin C. However, when we analyze our sequence, we can still see the gene in our sequence. It's just like mutated a little bit, so it's not functional. And then we compare that gene sequence to other animals, like chimps and orangutans and monkeys, and their gene is active, and there's just a few differences, and you can see that highlighted. Actually, I don't know what that is. Here's the difference right here. Some differences in this area right here. So it's kind of cool. What? Yeah, deletion, yes. And so we talked about mutations in a previous chapter and how it results in proteins that don't work right anymore. Okay. I think this is my last slide, yes. Divergence. No, not divergent. Divergence. So some stretches of DNA are common to many species. And if that's the case, then we can use DNA as kind of like a molecular clock to estimate when those common ancestors diverged from each other. So your book talks about this protein, this amino acid called cytochrome C. And when we compare the amino acid sequence for cytochrome C with us in chimpanzees, there are 0 differences, which means that we have the same amino acid sequence for that. Rhesus monkey, there's 1 amino acid difference. Rabbits, it gets a little bit higher, and then as you go down the list, it gets a lot larger. And you can see that, we probably diverged from yeast a really, 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 really long time ago, whereas rhesus monkeys has been recent, like I'd say, within the last
We can
200,000 years or something. Yes, you can if you choose to, yes. Okay, so tomorrow we'll read the section, then you'll get the one-sided worksheet, 6.3 worksheet. Then you'll work on your review guide, because that review guide is due Wednesday. What? I can't hear you.
The questions are homework, right?
No, you'll get class time tomorrow. And then you'll work on your review guide. And then, yeah, test Thursday.